Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fistful of Cards. It's your best friend Patrick Fair here today, and today we are continuing our spoiler list. If you haven't seen our spoiler videos, you should go check them out on our YouTube page and consider subscribing to be notified of spoiler videos as well as other videos in the future. The fine folks over at Pinebox Entertainment have given us a fistful of spoilers to share with you guys, and today we will be talking about our newest spoiler, Big Nose Kate. She is a 5 of spades, a 3 brass, 1 influence outlaw. She costs 5 and has 0 upkeep, and her ability is Noon. Discard a card to give your dude at this location +1 bullets. If you discarded an action with a shootout or job ability, that dude gets +1 influence. If that dude is not wanted, you may give that dude 1 bounty. There is a huge amount to unpack with this card, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, her stat line is unprecedented. She is a 3 brass, 1 influence dude that costs 5 and has 0 upkeep, and that is just not a stat line that exists in the game. A lot of dudes with this exact same stat line have 1 upkeep, things like Sammy Cook, and so she is definitely going to find her way into starting posses because she does not have that high upkeep. In addition to that, she is a continuation of the discard a card to do a thing dude set, and we're seeing more and more of this. We've got a few dudes in the game already that have this ability, and I'm really interested to see where they go with it because so far they've been incredibly different and incredibly diverse in terms of their stat lines, how much they cost, and what they do, and they've all been pretty solid dudes. However, let's just break down what this card does. So this card is a 5, and that's going to be interesting for a couple of reasons. One, 5 is a fantastic value for Sloan, or for Outlaws, pardon me, and that means that Big Nose Kate will find her way in a lot of decks and also into starting posses. I think the most interesting thing about her is if you happen to be running 5, which a lot of Outlaws do, or if you happen to be running 3 or both, there are a huge amount of effects in those values that turn people into studs, which is the most obvious and straightforward strategy with Big Nose Kate. If nothing else, the ability to discard a card and give Kate herself +1 bullet, making her a 4 brass, and then slap something like a pearl-handed revolver or a Bowie knife onto her to turn her into a stud is an immediate and obvious play that's really interesting and creates a very powerful stud. The second part of her ability is very powerful as well, as there are a huge amount of shootout and job abilities, both of which are big themes in Outlaws. I really like to see it when cards sort of push already existing themes and things that the faction is already doing and sort of slotting themselves in as a way to further something that the faction is already interested in. And so the second part of getting an influence off of a shootout or job ability is really fascinating, even if it's maybe not the most fantastical portion of this card. The most fantastical portion of this card is the final line: if that dude is not wanted, you may give that dude 1 bounty. I think that that's really going to open up a lot of interesting strategies because up until this point, making my own dudes wanted has been a very high risk strategy, and it's always been a theme that the Outlaws have had ever since they were Sloan back in the core set, but it's always been a theme that's been sort of one note because you always have to get past that opening play. You have very interesting and powerful dudes, things like Marion, who gets +2 bullets if he's wanted, but you have to do that first. And up until Big Nose Kate, the only real way to do that was to put your dudes in danger. You had to either play Risky Jobs or you had to play Desolation Row, which was still in itself a risky job, and you had to give your opponent the opportunity to sort of shut down your entire strategy before you even got started. And I think that makes that, I think that's the reason we don't see as much of that strategy, is because unlike a lot of decks where you can kind of set up at your leisure, or you can at least push yourself forward without that much risk, having to start a huge fight and making your dudes wanted is sort of a double whammy in terms of how much of a risk you're taking, because even playing a non-bounty or a non-make my own dudes wanted deck, running jobs is risky. But in that same way, you also have the case where it's like, okay, if I throw Marion with a kidnapping with some other dudes at you, and you win that shootout, not only have you killed my dudes, not only have you stopped my strategy, but you've also gained a bunch of money. So I've basically furthered my destruction in a huge variety of ways. And I think Big Nose Kate, if nothing else, just makes those dudes that just need a couple of points of bounty to be a little bit more playable. I think she really pushes that strategy without making it overpowered, which I really like. There is a cap on it. She can only give it to dudes that aren't wanted, which I think is a very smart choice, which means you can't sit around and make, bounty farms out of Desolation Row and just get a bunch of control points while sitting at home, because people don't like that kind of sort of passive strategy of generating control points. And so I think it's good that they're not pushing it very hard. But just the fact that I can do crazy things with that one bounty, I can play a lot of dudes that don't see a lot of play. I can push a lot of newer dudes like Silas Ames XP. I can make them a little bit more valuable. I can get a little bit more safety in sort of pushing those bounty strategies. I think she's going to be a fantastic addition to the game. Also, I think she brings back some of sort of the older and maybe less currently relevant archetypes without sort of over pushing them. Things like brass balls, for example, was an archetype that is, if for those who don't know, is sort of a statistics based archetype where you spend very little economy and dudes in order to create a big disaster for your opponent to deal with. And so an example of that might be, I start Big Nose Kate, I start Henry Morin in my starting bossy. Turn 1, I discard a card. I give Henry Morin +1 bullets. He's a 3 bullet. I give him a Bowie knife. He's 4 bullet stud. I play Bad Company on him because he's wanted. He's a 7 bullet stud, and I throw a kidnapping out, and my opponent has to deal with 7 stud Henry Morin on the first turn. And you can do very, very powerful, interesting combos that up until now have existed, but they've always been incredibly slow. They've been really clunky. You've had to sort of risk the biscuit with your dudes before you can even get started. And so I think Big Nose Kate is the most interesting of our spoilers, but I'd be interested to see what ideas you guys have for her. So if you're interested in this card and you liked our video, please give us a thumbs up. If not, if you hated the card and the video, you can give us a thumbs down. Either way, we want to hear your ideas in the comment section, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching.